Because I want you to hear an interview with Dr. Warren Farrell. He's the co-author of the book, The Boy Crisis, Why Our Boys Are Struggling and What We Can Do About It. He's also written a number of other books, including award-winning international bestsellers, Why Men Are the Way They Are and The Myth of Male Power. Dr. Farrell, thank you for coming back. It's good to see you.
I'm looking forward to talking with you.
So you're talking now about this idea of toxic masculinity and what it has done to the romantic life of young men, essentially. Now, I should tell the audience again, because if they don't remember, that you started out as a feminist. Do you still describe yourself as a feminist?
No, I'm afraid I don't. Feminism is supposed to be about, sort of having equal opportunities and expanding the opportunities for women. Of course, I absolutely support that. The problem is that feminism has taken the world and framed it as men are the oppressors, women are the oppressed. And so they say things like #MeToo, but #MeToo has been a monologue. It needs to be a dialogue. To say that you're in favor of love in the family and to not understand that you need to support men and women both talking with each other if you want to make any progress, not just one person speaking and somebody else saying #believe women, but implicitly don't believe men if there's a disagreement. That really is not progressive. That's regressive. That is the essence of regressivism, not hearing each other, not being able to listen. And so when I did the research for the boy crisis, I found that boys all over the world that did not have fathers, those were the boys that did not have a lot of father involvement, that what I call dad-deprived boys. That's where the boy crisis resides. The boy crisis resides where dads do not reside. And I was finding that the feminist colleagues that I had, they were very resistant to my suggesting that fathers need to be involved with families because they wanted the freedom for women to raise children by themselves. And they were lobbying for, when there's a divorce, mother knows best as to what to do with the children. And so therefore they didn't want fathers to have equal rights. And I'm saying, you're in favor of equal rights, but except when it doesn't work in favor of women because you want to hear what's best for, you don't want to hear what's best for the children. And I said, usually, even back in the 70s when I was on the board of NOW, it was beginning to be evident that children did better when they had significant amounts of father involvement. I had no idea until I did the research for the boy crisis that was much more accurate than I felt. Children do worse in more than 70 different areas when they don't have a significant amount of father involvement. And when I started putting out that information, feminists and liberals just completely shut down to hearing that message. And that deeply disappointed me.
It's kind of a vicious cycle. You start out with women saying a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Then they have single mothers raising children, and then the boys turn out angry and confused about how to treat women because they don't have a father in the house to demonstrate it. And then they say, well, these men are not fit to be husbands. I mean, it's kind of it kind of is a self-sustaining system.
It really is, and it's we find that the boys who are, when we look at ISIS recruits, for example, almost every ISIS recruit, and by the way, including the smaller percentage of girls who are ISIS recruits, are dad-deprived boys and or dad-deprived girls. Look at the mass shootings. When I studied the mass shootings in preparation for the boy crisis, I found that more than 90% of the mass shooters were not only boys, but dad-deprived boys. We're arguing about all these reasons. Is it mental health? Is it access to guns? Is it family values? Is it too much TV? Is it too much electronics? Well, girls have the same access to the same guns, the same TV, the same family values, the same families, and they're not doing the shootings. And it isn't the average boy that's doing the shootings. It is almost always dad-deprived boys that are doing the shootings. And then you look at suicides. Those are almost all from dad-deprived boys as well. Then the opiate addicts and the opiate epidemic, that's almost also all dad-deprived boys. And I started looking around and said, my goodness, I had no I believed, I wrote a book years ago called Father and Child Reunion. So I did have some sense of the importance of fathers. I had no idea until I did the research for the boy crisis that this is global, and it was much more potent than I thought. And so my attention went to what exactly is it that dads do that people need to understand and value in order to keep dads involved. And what can we do? Here we were throughout all of history, every generation had its war. And when we told men that they were really needed, men responded and were willing to die, to serve, to sacrifice. And, here we have all this stuff about toxic masculinity. My goodness, and male privilege. Is it male privilege to sacrifice your life so somebody else will live? This was very challenging from the perspective that this is all feminists think. And I'm thinking, this part of feminism is wrong. And so it cost me maybe $30-40 million to challenge this, but I really felt like maybe I can make a living saying what I think is really true. Striking the right balance between the two.
You're talking about, of course, some of the worst results of being fatherless. But let's go to the normal guy. I mean, it's Valentine's Day. There's a kind of meme in American society that men are just rascals who just want to go from woman to woman. And I think men support that meme because we all like to think of ourselves as James Bond a little bit. But in fact, in real life, what most of the men I know want is somebody to be with them and maybe take care of them a little bit and inject a little feminine gentleness into their lives. The ordinary guy, hearing all this talk about toxic masculinity and Me Too, what position does it put him in as a guy who wants to date and meet somebody?
Men are, I do couples communication workshops. I did one last weekend, and I asked every man in the group, would you be willing to, if you knew your wife was going to die, she was in jeopardy, and you knew that you could save her, 100% sure, but you had a 50% chance of risking your own life, either dying yourself, would you do it? And now this is private, the people wrote down privately, their wives and women friends that were there would never see their answers. Every single man in the group, they had the choice of saying, yes, I would die. I'm uncertain. No, I won't. Every single man in the group said, yes, I would die, risk my life to save my wife. And in reality, when there's a divorce, men are 10 times as likely to commit suicide as women are. Men need love enormously. We work hard. We're willing to die. We're willing to take jobs like garbage collector, drive an Uber, do construction work jobs, all the hazardous jobs, be firefighters. All the jobs that are likely to kill people more are jobs that are 90 to 100% male jobs. No one who's talking about toxic masculinity is appreciating this type of sacrifice. The American Psychological Association is attacking traditional masculinity as if it's not that masculinity does not have its problems. Masculinity does have its problems. Let's look at those problems. There's a huge gap between heroic intelligence, which is training for a short life, being willing to be called a hero, dying on the battlefield, and health intelligence, which is emotional intelligence and physical health intelligence, which is training for a long life. Let's examine that gap between heroic intelligence and health intelligence for sure. But don't just condemn men for being toxic, when in fact all their toxicities are as a result of being willing to sacrifice their life and deny their feelings in order to be willing to be a savior to you and a protector to you. That's the core understanding for men that is so important for women to have and understand, especially on Valentine's Day.
There's something else that somebody was writing about this in the Wall Street Journal last week, that one of the symptoms of masculinity that the American Psychiatric Association was condemning was the male tendency towards self-reliance, which I thought was really amazing. The idea that I think women are more conformist than men are. I think they tend to stick together. I think they tend to be affected by social mores more than men do. And if you are going to find a rebel, almost 90% of the time at least, it's going to be a guy. If you don't have rebels, if you don't have originality, the society doesn't progress at all. You don't have any new ideas. Everybody just agrees. There's so many things about men that that I think are beneficial. But what I'm wondering is, let's say you're 16, you're 17, you're looking for a girl, you want to go out. what are guys experiencing at this point? Are they just living in terror, or are they actually fine? Is it an overstatement to say that dating and romance has become a problem?
Since the boy crisis came out, I receive about 2 emails a day, hundreds of emails of parents saying, "My son is in seventh grade. He's learning that masculinity is toxic." He brings this home to us, and we talk about why masculinity is much more complex than toxic and what the good parts are. So he goes and so he asks the teachers, why is masculinity toxic? Part of what they say is men are stoic, men deny their feelings, they don't speak up. So he goes in and he speaks up, and then he's told he's mansplaining. And he comes home and says, "I don't get it," And so now I get emails from parents whose children are in ninth and 10th grade, and they say that my son is learning. He sees on the one hand, there's Gone with the Wind, where Scarlett O'Hara's character is saying no, no, no. Rhett Butler's character is saying yes, yes, yes. He drags her up the stairs, and the next scene is she's totally in bliss. And this is the female fantasy, the #1 best-selling movie of all times for females. You have 50 Shades of Gray. It's not actually 50 Shades of Gay. It's that women want. And so on the one hand, he's getting these messages as to what a female fantasy is. On the other hand, so he goes ahead and he takes risks, but then he realizes that the law says that if he holds a girl's hand in college, this is the actual law in California. It is in Congress or the state senate or assembly in 26 other states in the United States, that if your son is in college, he asks a girl out, she says yes. He reaches over to take her hand. She takes her hand without her giving affirmative consent. That is, without her saying ahead of time, "Yes, you may take my hand." He is subject to being potentially accused of sexual harassment. So at the one hand, he's so fearful of moving too quickly, and then when he exercises that caution, the girl or the woman says, "I really find you to be very sweet, but it goes around. But what follows very sweet.
Sure, yeah.
We'd like to just be a friend, and would you introduce me to the quarterback? That type of thing."
Yeah.
And so it is really confusing. President Trump said it's a scary time for young men. Well, I can verify that since the boy crisis came out, I'm getting hundreds, thousands of emails saying it's a scary time for my son. Here is the animus, the anger, the negativity my son is hearing about his future. He's hearing the future is female, and books like The End of Men are coming up. These are all sort of like The End of Men, the future is female. This anticipating the end of men is not exactly an inspiration for our son's life journey.
Yeah. Dr. Warren Farrell, the author of The Boy Crisis, Why Our Boys Are Struggling and What We Can Do About It. Thank you very much for coming on. I hope you'll come back and we'll talk again.
Absolutely a pleasure, and look forward to it.
Thanks a lot.